So, kind of to kick things off, man, I'll start with the same boring ass question I start with everybody because I refuse to think of something better.
Love it.
Simple introduction. Who are you? And just a little background on yourself.
Yeah, my name is Matt. I'm label manager at Smartpunk Records. Kind of tossed into it for lack of anyone else being around to do it. And just learning as I go and doing the damn thing that way.
Hmm.
My background comes from music, obviously. I played in bands, I ran an all ages venue, worked at recording studios, always was like on the artist side of it. So this is my first kind of foray into the music business side,
Yeah.
which I think is an interesting perspective. It's like, I've been on the receiving end of like deals and kind of been through. I know how much it sucks to tour when touring is like awful and your band's
Yep.
breaking down. Like, so I could definitely sympathize and empathize with bands when they're doing that shit. But at the same time, it's like I also can be like, dude, you're having a like one bad show, suck it up. Like we've got another one tomorrow, and like we got to keep
Yeah.
grinding. So it's a tough balance. I think that the bands on our roster really appreciate kind of the introspective look that I'm able to give, kind of teetering on both sides of it, which is
Hmm.
nice. But really, like, I want to be able to use what I've learned and my background to kind of change the music industry however I can from the inside out. And really making like I say to everybody that I work with, like, we are kind of in an artist era where it's like I think the labels need the artists more than vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's nice to have a credit card to help out, which is kind of what one of the things that a record label can be. But I think that a lot of times, especially with some of these bigger major labels like data mining and being like, oh, what's hot on TikTok right now? Like we got to sign this now.
Yeah.
And then whoever is on the receiving end of that, like they know the amount of work that they put into like cultivating their crowd and their fans and all that stuff, and they're not going to just jump at any offer. And I think with a lot of the horror stories being kind of public facing with how vast the internet is, like I think a lot of them are like, you know what, like maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe I'll just keep riding the independent wave and
Yeah.
see what that can do for me. So I think it's a really exciting time for music, really scary just because it's also like super oversaturated. And we were saying that in the MySpace era
Hmm.
where, shit was oversaturated then, and it's not, I don't think it's going away anytime soon, for better or worse.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my introduction. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. So let's party on.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's several things you said in there that I definitely agree with and I think are worth touching on. And, I think to start with the saturation of the market, as long as social media exists, right? It's never been easier to get your music out to the
Right.
world than it is
Hmm.
now. And that's a catch 22 because it's also never been easier for anybody to get their music out. So
Correct.
that saturation, to your point, is just getting bigger and bigger by the day. I used to know the exact number, but it's something like, I'm sure it's bigger now, something like 60,000 songs per day go to Spotify through the
Yeah.
different, DistroKid and all
DSPs
that.
and stuff. Yeah. I
So
I think that number is closer to the six figures now, which is just like
it's
insane to
insane.
think
Yeah.
about that amount of songs being like written, and not only written but also like recorded, and then like the time it's taken to upload it. And it's, yeah, it's a lot. And good and bad. It's hard to kind of wade through all of the different art and artists and everything like that. But songs, a great song is being written every second, it feels like,
Hmm.
which is like really awesome to be in this creative kind of boom.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to compare it to the Renaissance era, but I don't think like during the Renaissance era they knew what they had going on either. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
they were just doing what they thought they were able to do, and like why not? So that's kind of like what I feel like this is right now. It's like you can just be a kid in a basement and download some plugins and get a shitty guitar from the pawn shop and like create a band and go viral. And next thing you know, you're opening for Fall Out Boy. Like
Yeah.
that is a real story. I mean, the story of Owl City is like this dude was making this music in his grandparents' basement, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's fucking huge, and it's like exciting to be able to be just a uh non virtuoso and just be like, I'm a kid who like is quirky and like I like to be in front of the camera and people like to see me in front of the camera and they
Hmm.
are connecting with me on whatever level. And it's like, it's not only just music, it's also like art, it's comedy, it's whatever I'm fusing into. It's video games, it's recipe cooking. Like it could be any and everything all at once. And, you're not going to find your platform and who your fans are until like you kind of try everything and you see what
Yeah.
works. So I think it's incredible. I know a lot of people don't necessarily feel the same way, but whatever.
I mean, to me, it's one of those, to be cliche, a rising tide lifts all ships, right? Like
Yes.
the more stuff that comes out, the better everything can be because there's that much more.
100%. And it's like when you see, I mean, I'm putting air quotes around like a shitty band make it. It's like, oh shit, I could do that too.
Yeah.
Like that is a band from my hometown that we play. Like they were opening for us, and now they're doing all this. Like, oh, I could do that too. And that like friendly competition, which I do feel like has gone a little bit by the wayside, and it's become a little bit more of this competitive nature in this oversaturated market. But I think that friendly competition is super healthy, and I think it
Yeah.
really makes everyone want to do better and everyone want to be like, oh, they're doing it, I can do it. And then, yeah, rising tide raises all ships. And I say that same thing with my label, where it's like, or I think any label, if you have a band who's like popping off, people are going to look at that label and be like, oh, well, who else is on this label?
Hmm.
Like, that's how I got into music was I went to a Blink 182 show and I saw Phoenix TX and Bad Religion. I opened the
Yep.
liner notes, saw who they thanked, bought those CDs, bought the comps from those labels, and I got like all the Fat Wreck comps, all the Epitaph comps, all the Drive Through comps, and just that music discovery of seeing that, like I I really hope, and I think I've said this before to somebody, but it's just like end of the day, I'll know that like I was successful at what I'm doing currently if I could like introduce a kid to like that gateway where it's like
Hmm.
maybe there's a band on our label that they found at a show or something. They buy the record, they check them out online, whatever. They see who they're thanking, they check those bands out, and now it's just like you open up the floodgates to like
Yeah.
so much cool shit. Because for me, that changed my life. For
Yeah.
better or worse. I can't say, but it's like I love what I'm able to do now, and I really just want to like kind of pay it forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, especially when you think about the smaller quote unquote indie labels, I think you guys are one of the shining stars in the industry right now
Thank you. I
because
appreciate that.
there's so much diversity on the label, to your point. Like you've got rivals killing it. I mean, Kaylee can do no wrong, it seems like
Yeah,
lately.
just
Um,
superstar,
yeah,
absolute superstar.
yeah. And then you've got legends with, Less Than Jake and some of these other guys. And it's like, so you can come to this label, not that label tours are much of a thing anymore like they used to be. You
Hmm.
grab a Victory Records tour. But you go to a rival show, and to your point, you're like, oh, she's dope. Like, let's go see who else is on that label. Maybe we'll find something similar. And then you're surprised and go, oh shit, like this isn't similar, but this is really
Right.
cool.
It's a wide spectrum, and I think like uh one of the things when I kind of came onto the team that they were like kind of pushing towards like this is kind of the spirit of Smartpunk is like if it would ever play Warp Tour, like it deserves a spot on
Hmm.
our label. And I really took that to heart because it's like I saw Jurassic 5 at Warp Tour. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I saw J5, I saw Katy Perry, I saw Bring Me the Horizon, I saw Day to Remember, and it's like a big, huge, just like it can be anything. It's like alternative music is really, I think, the umbrella category, and it ranges from everything from skate punk to ska to grind and noise, math, indie, emo, like all of it.
Yeah.
It's we at the label, we're all fans of like different stuff, and not saying that it's bad to kind of be like, hey, we're a label who's putting out like shoegaze or hardcore music. Like I
Right.
think that's awesome. And that is cultivating a fandom where it's like, oh, like Triple B, I love Sam. I love all the bands on his label. And it's like anytime he's like, oh, I'm signing this band, I'm like, yep, that band's gonna be fucking awesome. And
Yeah.
the shows are probably killer. And like I know what I'm getting into. And I love that. And for us, it is a little bit more of a kind of a mixed bag of like, oh, let me check out Rivals, and it's like, oh, and then there's Hungover, which is like completely different, and then oh, there's Wounded Touch, which is totally different from that, and then there's Suck Brick Kid, which is totally different from that, and it's like for me, kind of exciting. Like I
Yeah.
kind of have that ADD mind where it's like going on my Spotify and hitting play and letting whatever comes up, it will go from like a Gin Blossoms to a Mineral to a Norma Jean, and I'm like, yep, this all just makes sense in my brain
Yeah.
somehow. It's all music, I guess.
Yeah, that's one of the funny things. Like me and a buddy, we always compare our Spotify Wrapped and whatnot, and both of us are over 100,000 minutes listened,
So
for the
sick.
year and all that. And like, but it's funny this year. I have to pull up the screenshot that I had. So like, obviously doing the podcast, I research a lot of bands, all that. This year I listened to 107,000 minutes of Spotify, 9,963 different songs by 4,489 different artists. Like it, to your point, like if I just go on and hit shuffle on my Spotify, even Spotify doesn't know what the fuck to give me at this point
Yeah.
because it's just
I
like,
I just did the math. That's almost 75 days worth of
yeah,
music straight, which is like that is insane.
yeah,
That's a quarter of a year. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that, or a little bit over 2 months. That's awesome.
yeah.
Crazy.
And that's what I love about all this. Like I've been a big music fan my whole life. I remember seeing Smartpunk at the Warp Tours and stuff,
Hmm.
and even back then when I started doing music journalism in about 2004. So I started doing
Cool.
interviews in like 2005 at Warp Tours and stuff. And I've got a Chris story for you from Less Than Jake at
Oh
some point
God.
too. It's my favorite story to tell about him. Um, but no, like I think even since seeing Smart Punk come on the scene years ago at Warp Tour and whatnot, it's always been one of those labels where it's like I know I can take a chance with them because they're not going to give me something that's shit. Because if
Hmm.
and like I guess what I really mean by that is like I feel like everyone on the label, not to blow smoke up you guys' ass or paint
No,
you in a
please do it.
different
I love it.
picture, but like I truly believe, and I've had some of your artists say, like, you guys are 100% in on the artists that are on the label. They're there for a reason. We're
Yeah.
not going to sign somebody just to sign somebody. And
100%.
yeah,
And that, for better or worse, like it could be a band who's gonna stay in like a small town and not ever do anything. It's like I don't care. Like this band rocks. Like I need
yeah,
people to listen to this. And it's like I will try to do my best to like get it to where it needs to be. And more times than not, it doesn't work out the way that everyone wants. And
right.
the band will stay a small band forever, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I mean, it's like for me and what we're doing here, it's like, you know, uh, it's obviously a business. Like we need to make money to stay doing what we're doing, but really, it's like I want to do right by the artist. Like if
Yeah,
if we are making a little bit of money from every artist, but every artist is able to make money and keep on touring and doing what they love to do, then that's what works for us in this kind of like ecosystem. Not
yeah,
not all labels able to do that. Not all labels have a catalog. Like we're almost in our 200th release since 2016, and like the first couple of years were very kind of slow, and over the last 2 years we've been doing like over 25 releases per year, which is insane.
yeah,
um Between like licenses and developing artists, I should say.
hmm,
And it's just like, yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of free time. So it's like the bands that we work with, we want to actually enjoy. We want to be able to hang out with them. We want to like be able to have some sort of like commonality between us. A lot of the bands, though sonically they don't sound alike, one of the big things that I do when I talk to bands is like I really kind of have these conversations to figure out what their ethos kind of is. And it's like I
Hmm.
really try to have it be like, hey, you might not be like a punk rock DIY band or anything like that, but like you understand what it means to like do it yourself and grind and like what it takes in whatever like capacity you're doing it in.
Yeah.
So it's like while you might be a band like Rivals, who many will say is like that's not a punk band, I come back and say, fuck you, that is a punk band. Like they started doing it themselves. They're getting big by doing their own thing. They're still out there doing their own thing and killing it. And those are the people I want to work with and I enjoy working with. And, you know, as long as you're not a piece of shit, then like, yeah,
Right.
we're here for you, you know? So that's
Yeah.
kind of what we kind of tout.
Yeah, for sure. And we keep coming back to Kaylee and Rivals, but like she's a prime example of one that like sure, she's not a quote unquote punk artist.
Right.
However, when you actually look at like how hard she's grinded for all this, how much passion she has for all of this, there's nobody more punk
Unmatchable.
than
Yeah, dude.
than her.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's insane. And like you and I are of the same age group ish. So we've seen the gatekeepers and stuff. Talk a little bit about that because I think from the label side, having those gatekeepers that are, maybe calling out that, oh, that's not really a band that I would have put on the label or whatever. Do you run
Yeah.
into that some where
Oh,
you catch
100%.
that back?
Yeah, I mean it happens all the time between signing new artists and even like doing re-releases of like records. Like people are like, "Oh, why would you do this?" And it's like, "Fuck you, I'm doing this because I want to do it." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like um we've done a lot of, I guess you would call them questionable releases, but to me it all makes sense. To me it's all just music that I enjoy listening to and like selfishly, these are records that I want to have on vinyl. Like when I did Story of the Year, and we started putting that into production, everyone's like, "Well, why would you do this record? Like, these are the songs with the hits." And I'm like, "Because this record rocks. Like, if you've never listened to Black Swan, like, please go back and listen to it. The
Yes.
riffs are great. The choruses are like it's everything you wanted, and it didn't have that like MTV frill bullshit behind of it. But
Mm,
everything else was still there. And that was on Epitaph. That is like punk rock label 101 kind of shit. So like
yeah.
I really I kind of like I don't want to say take offense, but I'm just like, who are you to say anything? Like, have you ever been on a stage playing guitar? Have you ever been on tour and like done this shit? Like these bands are, whether you want to admit it or not, like doing this thing that we as fans don't understand but try to connect with. And,
Right.
you know, we feel that, especially with the power of the internet, we feel that we could say anything without any backlash. And I
Yeah.
do love kind of going in the comment section and like talking back to some of these people and just like putting them in their place. Like we will uh we will be putting out a Vanessa Carlton record next year.
I'm
And
down for it.
me too. And I mean, I remember like hearing this record for the first time over a decade ago and just being like, man, these songs are like so deep and this like the chord changes are incredible and like all this stuff is really cool. And thinking about where I'm at now and it's like, oh, people aren't like who that follows Smartpunk is gonna want to get into that. And I'm like, I don't care. Like I think the people that will get it will be cool.
Hmm.
I think anyone who's not following Smart Punk who somehow stumbles across it will be excited about it. And if that's one person that then comes to check out what everything else that we're doing and they're like they get into one of our artists, that's awesome. You know, at the end of the day, it's great. But really, the record's killer. I'm excited to be able to play it on my turntable and have my
Hmm.
kids like listen to it and sing along. And I think that's really all that I'm doing this for. Like it is a selfish label. I put out the bands that like I want to sign and I want to listen to and I want to see live and I'm reissuing records that I want and it's fun and exciting and I think that is the ultimate like middle finger to all those gatekeepers and
Yeah.
something that we kind of like really like to do that might make people mad is that we do it because we want to. And like that might not be a good enough reason for anybody else, but that's really the reason we do it.
But that's the heart of punk, right? Like
Yeah.
it's for us, fuck everybody else. If you happen to fuck with it, great. If you
Yeah.
don't, I don't care. Go do your thing. It's fine.
Yeah, there's enough of everything for everyone to find something to latch onto. And it's like if you
Yes.
like what we're doing, like you're already in good company. Like come join us. It might just be me and you in this community, but like this is our community, and that's
Yeah.
great. Um, but yeah, it is all about like community building and seeing uh, we've been getting a little bit more experimental with like stuff that we're reissuing, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Um, but just like getting people from other communities involved in what we're doing, and then seeing people be like, oh, I came here for the Flyleaf record, but I saw you did the Seosin record, and I like when I was in middle school I loved that. Oh, and you also did this record. Like, oh man, I remember like wanting to go to Warped Tour and I couldn't because but that band was playing, and like that would have made my day. And it's like having those conversations with people
Yeah.
who I probably never would have met ever just by doing whatever else there is to do in the world, uh, is super exciting. And it's just fun, and it's all about the connectivity that like this thing called music kind of like is the tether between us all.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely agree. And I was looking through some of the more recent ones. You know, you mentioned the Flyleaf one. The Unwritten Law album is one of the best
so
punk
sick, dude.
albums
So
ever.
sick. Yeah.
Like it's so good. You guys just re-released not too long ago Whisper War by the Cab again.
Hmm.
And talk about a band that just never got the love that they were supposed to
Dude,
get, you know?
just like pop, pop, like bubblegum pop hooks for days. And like
Yes.
if that came out now, it would be unstoppable. I
Yeah.
really feel like it was so ahead of its time, and like I mean, I can imagine shit like that going out with like a 5 seconds of summer and
Oh yeah.
just doing these like huge tours, and it's like, man, we were really ahead of it in this like the fueled by stuff. Like even Cobra Starship was ahead of its
Hmm.
time in like what they were doing. But you know, you go back and Gabe is a punk dude. Like he was doing Midtown, he was doing shitty van tours, and still to this day, like the dude is just here for a good time and like hanging out. And it's really
Yeah.
awesome to, you know, uh, it's really awesome to meet your heroes. I know that a lot of people don't like that, but like for me, everyone that I've spoken to and dealt with on this side of it is just like so cool and like natural and nice. And
Yeah.
a lot of the stories that you hear are people like, yeah, we signed to a major label because it sounded really good. We never made money off that record. And we really would like fans to be able to like buy a piece of this music, and like then we can share and go on and like, you know, oh, we can like get involved in the artwork and the packaging and all this stuff. It's like, dude, like I want you to come into this project and be excited about it like we are. Like
Right.
that is when we get to have fun with what we're doing. Like doing all the crazy variants and packaging with Less Than Jake was incredible because that is a flagship band for me, being from Florida. And
Yeah.
like that was one of my core bands gravitating to when I was little. So like getting the opportunity to work with those guys has been incredible. And like you said, like hearing the stories of like we'll just get off on tangents on like calls and emails. It's just like I can't believe you've lived so many lives and you're still
Right.
around to tell the tale. Like this is incredible.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool.
And that's another thing that, you know, I don't know. Hopefully this podcast helps some people realize like you guys aren't just putting out music from your artist. You know, it's these
Right.
partnerships, doing all these re-releases, helping with merch for other artists, things like that.
Hmm.
And I think it's a pretty unique label setup, right? Like there's not really
Yeah,
anybody else that's going, "Hey, I know we didn't ever make a deal on this, but you want to put it back out?" No, fuck it.
100%.
If you weren't under our contract, we're not doing it. That's
Yeah,
how most labels look at it.
it's been an interesting dynamic because we have this kind of this weird outlook on it all where it's like, you know, especially licensing from these major labels,
Yeah.
or even like some of these no like defunct independent labels that these artists were have not seen any money from, like re-earthing some of the stuff, talking to these bands who may not even be bands anymore, and they're just like around, and just having the conversations with them and being like, oh, what was it like back then, and like how'd everything go, and like hearing the stories and be like, okay, cool, well, like if we were to do this project, how would you want to see it? Like, what do you want out of it? And, it kind of always starts with a, hey, this is no money out of your pocket. Like, we're doing this project already. If you want to be involved, we'd love for you to be involved as possible.
Right.
And it comes down to, you know, do you have any extra tracks you want to throw on this? Was there a B side that like, and if we're able to sneak stuff like that onto the records, awesome. Like the Samson record, we were able to put a B side on it on the last track, and for me, it's like I love that shit. Like I
Yeah.
love listening to CDs, and like 15 minutes after the last track, you hear the hidden track, and you're like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Um, like with the Used on the self-titled record, where they had I think it was called "Choke Me."
Hmm.
Um, but I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, this is the best song on this record. How come it's not like on the track list? And it's like, it's kind of just like on there, but like I remember seeing the band play it live and I was like, I never thought I'd see that day. I never
Yeah.
thought this would be a thing. So any chance that we get to really like make it also a fan servicing experience, we try to do that because we're fans first and foremost.
Yeah.
We're fans, we're vinyl dorks, we're dorks in general. We just love to be doing what we're doing, and if it sticks, it sticks, and if it doesn't, like that's also kind of fine. Like
Yeah.
we're able to have some misses on the label and it not crush us, which is a very lucky position to be in.
Yeah.
Because I know that, pressing vinyl is expensive. Doing these licenses from these major labels is expensive. And just being able to have all of the support that we do is incredibly lucky for us, I would say.
Yeah. So with all the between the artists that are actually on the label and all the reissue stuff you've done, who are a couple of the artists that just like really stand out as a holy shit, am I really working with these guys?
I would say Less Than Jake is number one. That has like to this day been like I have to pinch myself to
Right.
like be doing that stuff. I'm trying to think who else. We're we've got a really interesting situation because it is like we're reissuing records from bands, whether it's like first time on vinyl or hasn't been pressed in a while. So like opening those conversations are great. We've got really cool new emerging talent. So like being able to start that from like ground up and being like, I was like, you get to see the fruits of your labor with that kind of
Right.
stuff. That's exciting. But we're also doing like exclusive records with other labels that are just cool enough to like bring us along for the ride. Um, so we got to get like an exclusive version of the Get Up Kids Something to Write Home About
Yeah.
anniversary edition. And like working with Polyvinyl is just huge for me. Like I am a Midwest emo dork. Like I remember being in my friend's car hearing American football for the first time and being like, what the fuck is like what is this bugle doing in this like guitar music? Like what's going on here? And
Yeah.
then like just putting that record on repeat and it's like 3 a.m. and like everything just sinking into me. So like being able to be part of that lore and like working with Hopeless and working with Fearless and Rise and Epitaph and like all of these labels has just been so cool. So it's really hard to like pinpoint
Yeah.
what's been awesome. Um I love the guys in the Swellers. Like I that was a band for me also like why wasn't that band ever bigger than they got? Band's band for sure. And I feel
Yeah.
like the people that are the fans are like the diehards and they're like, we want every record. Like, why aren't you pressing this one next? Why aren't you pressing? And I'm like, it takes time. You gotta kind of like do it piece by piece. I would love to press everything, you know.
And there's also a comma in that pressing price, and we have to make sure we have that, you know?
Yes, exactly. There's comma zeros. We want to make sure that like, and we're not also oversaturating everything else. Like we
Right.
know that it's expensive. Like this is an expensive hobby to like get into. And if you're variant collecting and you're a fan of ours and you're doing shit like that, I'm sorry because I love doing a lot of colors with these records and a lot of wacky things. So
Yeah.
everyone's like, our Instagram DMs, which I try to never be in, are always like, man, I was only able to get like 4 out of 6. Can you sell me the other two? And I'm like, no, I don't have them. Like we put it all for sale. It's like I don't even have copies of that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like if you find someone who does, that is a super fan and they deserve it and like good for them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I love the art of variant collecting. I love the art of like, I don't know if you have it, but like anytime I go to a record store, if there's like Give Up the Ghost, We're Down to Our Underground vinyl there, I
Yeah.
have 10 copies. Like I don't need another one, but I have to buy it. It doesn't matter. Like that was the one record that like I think that was my introduction into hardcore. Like I think I bought that record because I liked the album cover,
Yeah.
and when I first listened to it, I was like, "Oh, this is not for me." And then like a couple years later, I was like, "Oh, this is for me." Um, and you know, I hope I love talking to people and they're like, "Oh, this is my record." Like Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run. It doesn't matter. Like I'll have 50 copies, but I need to buy it. It's like
Yeah.
that's cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, I am lucky to work with a lot of these artists that we're doing, especially with these reissues, like scouring the internet to figure out, like, kind of seeing where I could find the band members or management or
Yeah.
anything like that. And I feel a little bit like a creep, but it's always like, hey, not to be weird. My name is Matt. This is what I do. We've licensed this project. Would love to talk to you about it. Like, do you want to jump on a call? And normally it's met with hesitation at first. And then,
Yeah.
like, once I'm like, hey, like, I want to make money with you on this project. Like, I want to like bring this to vinyl. I hope that if there's money to be made, we could split it. No money out of your pocket. Like, if you want copies, absolutely. And there was this way with Unwritten Law where they're like, you're the first label to ever talk to us about like reissuing our records. And we've had many records get
Yeah.
re-released in the past. And they're like, this has never been a thing. So like we're very thankful for that. And I'm like, I'm very thankful that you made this record and you wrote these songs. Like I grew up listening to Unwritten Law and they were in like the skateboarding and BMX video games I used to play. And like
Hmm.
they were downloaded, like I would download Blink 182 off Napster and it's actually an Unwritten Law song. And that's how I got into the band and shit like that. Um,
Kids will never know.
dude,
Kids today will never know the frustration, but also the gold that you could find doing that shit. Like, oh,
100%.
it's all the small things by Blink 182. No, it's not. It's Seeing
Right.
Red by
Yeah.
Unwritten Law.
It's
Like,
What's the Dealio by Mest. It's like,
right.
it's
Like,
anything.
yeah.
It's anything but what you want it
You're
to be.
right. Right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I discovered the Smoking Popes that way because
Yeah.
there was a song that I thought was Newfound Glory, and it until years later when I heard the actual song on the actual record, I'm like, oh, I knew this when I was like 11. Like, and I downloaded the songs on my family's computer, and like all like I burned it on CDs for all these friends, and probably a lot of other stuff I shouldn't have been doing
Yeah.
that is very illegal that we don't like to say that we do, but
Yeah.
hypothetically, maybe I did all these things.
Statute of limitations, right? I At least I hope
Absolutely.
that they're over. So,
We'll see.
yeah, like I it crazy times like Napster, LimeWire. Um, when I started working at Best Buy, little after high school, 2004 ish, Napster was still big then, so we had like a Napster burning station, but it was
Hmm.
when Napster went to legit, so you
Right.
knew what you were getting. Um, but like, yeah, we would the way Best Buy had that set up, like you would go buy a 10 song card, bring it back to us. We would use your credits to buy songs. If
Hmm.
we've already used them, obviously it just goes in our credits. But like me and one of my buddies, huge music nerds, and we're like, dude, we have thousands of fucking songs. Like we
Yeah.
were burning our own CDs all the time. Like
Libraries out the wazoo of
every
music.
day we were burning CDs, man. It
Yeah.
was it was crazy. And like, I don't know, maybe it's the old man in me, but like creating a Spotify playlist, it's fun. Sure. It's not burning a CD where you're like,
Not the same.
I've only got 12 tracks. They have to bleed into each other. I have to make sure that this flows correctly.
Oh, dude. I mean,
It's an art
making
form.
making mixed CDs for like your crush, like that was
Oh,
such
dude.
a big thing for me. And like as cheesy as it is, but like, oh man, I need this song to be the close. Oh, and when they get to this part, they're gonna lose their shit, and bam, it's gonna work. And it never did. It
No,
never worked out.
no,
Um, but yeah, it's just a fun thing. And I mean, aside from that, and I'm sorry to get off on
no,
just
you're
like
fine. Yeah.
tangents, but having a CD in your CD player and like that's the only thing, like the amount of effort it took to take a CD out, go into your CD wallet, put something else in,
Dude.
it's like fuck that. I'm listening to Where You Want to Be for the next 6 months.
Yep.
And that is the way that the lyrics are like burned on the inside of my eyelids right now. And it I will say, like, I listen to a lot of music now too. Nothing will ever be as submersive as being in a car and only being able to listen to the same like 10 to 12 songs for
Yeah.
months on end.
Yeah.
And
Well, and especially like on a road trip where you're stuck on the highway and
oh
it's
yeah.
I can't reach over and find another CD because I'm gonna die, like there's no
Yep,
way around
exactly.
it.
There's no one in the passenger seat. It's just me, and here we go. We're looping the record back around. And that's why it's
Yeah.
awesome, like when there are the records at like the end of track 12 bleeds into the beginning of track 1.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, that they knew what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah.
And living in a Spotify age, you kind of lose that. You lose the hidden track, you lose the like secret intro track that like you used to be able to rewind on a CD and go back a
Hmm.
couple of minutes, and like bands did that. um a lot of cool, just fun trickery art forms that are
Yeah.
lost because of digital media, but we have our own shit too.
Yeah. Yeah. But there was nothing cooler than like being in high school or middle school, whatever, going to one of your friends and being like, hey, check this out. You're the first person to show them
Oh
that
yeah.
that secret track exists,
Yeah,
blowing their mind. Or like back in the day, like, oh, this is the Japanese variant. This is the import.
the
Like,
best.
holy
The
shit,
best.
what is this?
Every song, and I've had this discussion with so many people, every song that was ever on like a Japanese import or like whatever B-side, it's like, man, that's the best song on the record. Like to
Yeah.
this day, Nights and Weekends from Starting Line is like one of my favorite songs. And I'm like, I can't believe this was never on a record. Like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
man?
It was a Japanese import on that one, wasn't it?
Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's awesome. And going through that, and that's the thing that we try to like bring in with, the Saracen track was that it was a
Yeah.
Japanese import song. It's like I want to bring in that like kind of fandom into what we're doing now, where it's like, man, you gotta hear this one song.
Yeah.
And sometimes the labels aren't very willing to give that into. They're like, hey, you get the record and you get the basic art, and like that's kind of it. Um, but sometimes it's like, hey, here's like a whole bunch of like B-sides and rarities and stuff like that. And whether they know they're sending that to us or not, I kind of would rather ask for forgiveness later on and be
Yeah.
like,
Here, you guys sent me this Dropbox, so that's your fault. Like,
right, exactly. That's exactly the conversation I'm going to be having. Probably we're doing a double LP for Gin Blossom's record, and it's got a lot of extra stuff. And it's like I'll probably be having that conversation
yeah.
within the next couple months. But
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, here's our contract. You sent us the stuff. We just
Yeah,
used what you sent us.
exactly. I didn't. I thought you were wanting me to do this
Yeah.
with this
Yeah. I thought you
project.
were offering it all up. So that's not my fault.
Right.
So for you, Matt, like going through life, working with Smartpunk now, the vision that you have for what a label can be and should be moving forward, you touched on it at the very, very beginning with some of those horror stories. Again, not blowing smoke up your ass, but every band that I've talked to from you guys has said how incredible you guys have been for them and
I
whatnot.
pay them. I
Yeah, I've
personally pay them a
right.
lot of money. Yeah.
Comes off of the Matt paycheck, right?
Hmm. I don't
Um,
add it to their recoup. It's just my wife pays for everything, and it's
right.
really
They
great
Venmoing them during
relationship.
the conversation. Yeah, I
Yep.
got you. Um, but no, like, how important is that to you that there isn't that contingence or not that contentiousness between the band? Like the easy scapegoat is the old Victory Record stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
the fucking over of A Day to Remember, and then you find out that it happened to Silverstein and everybody else that was
Everyone.
on the label.
Everyone. Yeah.
So for you guys, obviously it's a conscious decision, but like how important is it to make sure you're being transparent and knowing what you're doing with that?
100%. And I mean, I start everything off with that kind of leaning into like, hey, I want this to be, whether you are going to end up with us or not, I want to be as transparent as possible with you. I want you to ask me questions. I want to give you feedback, and I want to like help you for when you are negotiating a recording contract or deal with Smartpunk or anyone else that like you might be talking to, because it is a community based industry, and it's like I want almost I try to have every relationship that I have with people to be positive.
Yeah.
Not only just to be well liked, but to be respected and to be kind of like if that person tells one other person like, oh, like you're looking for this, like you should talk to Smartpunk. Like just having that kind of line of communication, I think is super important. Um, because word travels fast. Bands talk to bands all the time. Like there have been a lot of bands who have vetted our other bands before they like we jump on a call or something. They're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I want to let you know I talked to so and so and so and so about you guys, and they had nothing but nice things to say." And I'm like, "That's awesome. Like I appreciate that you did that. And if they also had not nice things to say, like I appreciate that too. Like I want you to know the highs and the lows because there's going to be both. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we might have a record that takes off and your record might not do that. And you might feel like we failed you. And I will tell you time and again that we didn't intentionally do it, but it is what it is. We've had artists that we're still friendly with that didn't work out, and that's totally fine. Like this isn't I don't expect to be perfect for everyone.
Right.
And for me it's like I just want to make sure that like we're kosher at the end of the day. Like we're all good and like everything's fine because like I would rather you feel like, man, like it didn't work out, but it wasn't bad. Like it just didn't work out because it
Yeah.
wasn't the right fit, or it wasn't the right time, or like whatever X, Y, and Z. I don't want it to be like, oh, that dude stole $50,000 from us and then never returned our calls or
Yeah.
anything like that. So yeah, being transparent is kind of the basis of what we do, and I think it's super important. And I think it's like you kind of gotta be like everything is out on the internet right now, so
Yeah.
you could always open up a poll on Instagram or Twitter and get people to talk to you, and it could be true, it could be not true, it could be whatever, but like there will be conversations being had, and I would really just like for kind of anything that people say about Smartpunk, from everything from like what we're doing to our customer service to how we're packaging our records to like an interaction they had with us at a festival. Like I want it to be positive. Like I just want to leave this place better than I found it. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like what I want to do with everything in life.
Yeah. Which I will say, in the music industry, that's a pretty low fucking bar though, right? Like to
You
leave
would
it better
think.
than you found.
You would you would think. And somehow people could still fuck it up. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Um, again, I want to touch on this because I think, hopefully some artists listen to this and maybe want to reach out and talk to you about some of these things. But like again, it's not just being a roster member, it's
Hmm.
the different vinyls, the merch. Talk about some of the services that you can offer in those types
Yeah.
of partnership opportunities.
So we started a thing called Smartpunk MFG kind of a couple of years ago that was more, it started with like helping out other local bands here in Orlando. It's like, oh, well, we're making records already. Like I do that through Smartpunk. Like you want to do a run of 100? Like I can get that for you. Like no problem. Like we can
Yeah.
do that. We can do cassettes. We can do CDs. Like I've got relationships with all these people because by day, this is what I do. So I'm trying to like in turn get those services for anyone else, whether it be big band, small band, it kind of doesn't matter. Like we're here to help out whoever. Um, Embroidery, stickers, backdrops for bands on tour. It's kind of like we can do anything and everything just because we've had the task of at one point in time trying to do anything and like for Chris the
Yeah.
Makes, we made him a calendar. We made back patches for him. We did like rolling papers. We did all this like fun,
Yeah.
crazy. We've done frisbees. We've done all this stuff, shot glasses.
Yeah.
That is just wacky and zany, and it's like, oh, can I make a waffle iron like with this band's logo? Probably. Let me Google it and find out. And like, oh, I can do that. And like this person that I've made these beach balls through, they can also do that somehow. So like, let's do this. Let's see what can come out of it. Um, just taking all that stuff and bringing it to kind of uh, a localized level or even national, international. Like we've done stuff
Yeah.
for bands who, when they come in for Fest here in Gainesville, and they're like, "Hey, we're doing a one-off show in Gainesville. Can we get 50 shirts?" It's like, "Yeah, we'll drive it up to you. Like we're gonna be there anyway. Like we'll do that." We partner with Fest. to do that, where they send out kind of like an email blast of, this is a company that's working with us and they do this, that, and the other. And like, if you want to use their services, here's their email. And
Yeah.
we try to make it as artist friendly in everything that we do as possible. Um, so that's really the gist of it, is pretty much a one-stop shop for any sort of artist. That's kind of the idea. It's like, we could do your shirts, we could do your physical media, we could do any and everything. Sky's kind of the limit with that sort of stuff. So
Yeah. Dope. I have to ask, since you brought up the waffle maker, is that a real thing? Did you actually have to find a waffle maker?
I've looked, it didn't get produced, but I looked into it. There have been a lot of really weird, I mean, I've made for a band, I made vibrators for them that
Okay.
were engraved with their artist name on it. That was cool. We've made condoms. We made Smartpunk condoms, which like we thought was funny, but then we're like, oh shit, we're traveling in like a van and trailer that gets hot. Like, these could definitely have holes in them. We might
Yeah.
not want to
Yeah.
like
There's
do
some sort
this,
of
I guess.
liability there. We're
Right,
not
right, yeah,
sure what
yeah.
it is.
We're not guaranteeing anything by using this, but it's a funny package, isn't it?
Right.
That's kind of our MO with that kind of stuff. But yeah, just wacky stuff. We've done plushies, we've done necklaces, we've done I mean, you name it. Like, with all the merch stuff between bands on our roster and what they've wanted to release, and bands that we've worked with, and like label service or production services outside the label, we've done a
Yeah.
lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. So trying to be respectful of your time, we'll be wrapping up here shortly.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll share my Chris story, but then I want you to give me a Chris story. So the Chris story that I've got, I interviewed him on Warp Tour 20, I don't remember, 2013, 2014, probably somewhere in that
They probably
area.
played that year. Yeah, why not?
Right. Like, pick one of the years in the teens. It was around there. But anyway, the way I wrapped up all my Warp Tour interviews was always, what advice do you have for kids that are still coming out? Because Indiana always was like in the middle of the run. So
Hmm.
like plenty of shows left. What advice do you have? And I'll never forget Chris's answer. He said, for the guys, it's stay hydrated. Alcohol doesn't hydrate you. Don't drink beer, drink water, stay hydrated. And he paused and he goes, for the girls, remember, always wipe front to back, never back to front, because that's how you get an infection.
Words of
He's not
wisdom.
wrong.
Correct.
But like, only Chris would come up with that as an answer for advice for people coming to Warp Tour.
100%. The dude is the one of the quickest people I've ever met,
Yeah.
and he's just an enigma of a person. He's so much personality. He's so smart. He's so caring. He's so funny. He's just like such a joy to be around. And it's like, it's endearing. Like, watching him be an asshole is endearing.
Yeah.
And there are only so many people that can pull that off, and he is one of them. Um, my story, one of my favorite ones, that's probably one of the only public facing ones I could say, is him talking about when they uh, raffled off, or like, I don't want to say donated. There were people that won their show costumes.
Oh,
Like,
okay. Yeah.
I think it might have been at a Warped Tour, it might have been at a headlining show, but it was I believe, a mother and a daughter who won pretty much like every costume that they'd wear on stage. Things that have been like worn hundreds of times, sweat through, just disgusting
Right.
pieces of cloth that should have been burned immediately. But they were kept in a trunk or several trunks and lugged around the country or the world. I don't even fucking know. But he's like, yeah, there was a girl who won, and she pulled up in like a station wagon, and her mom popped the trunk, and we just loaded everything in there, and they just went off. And I always wondered to this day, what the fuck did they do with all that stuff? And I'm like, yeah, like, what would you do? What could you do with any of that stuff? And I don't want to think about it. It can't
No,
be anything good.
no.
But
Like, you hope that it's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe you don't hope, because now that I've started thinking about it, I'm like, maybe they like are amateur wax figure makers and they've made
yeah,
less than Jake as
a
wax
weird
figures.
voodoo shrine
But
or
yeah, like,
something.
no, that is disturbing for sure.
Yeah.
Because like, even even one show worn clothing. It's like y'all
Disgusting.
understand, especially if it was a Warp Tour. Like Warp Tour is always on the hottest day of the year. The
Yes.
amount of
And every
sweat
city you
that
go
is
to.
in that is just disgusting.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even touring, like I remember like when I would tour with my old band, it's like I had my show like clothes and like
mhm,
I would wear that for 4 or 5 days, however long it took until I was able to do a load of laundry again. And like at the end of it, that got disgusting.
yeah,
Um, and I can only imagine what a Warp Tour soaked outfit would smell like after years of abuse.
yeah,
I think that's the only way I could put it, to be kind.
yeah. No, I get where you're going with that because I kind of want to throw up myself right now thinking
Yeah.
about it. You know,
It's
like
probably like brittle and like would deteriorate in your
oh yeah,
fingers if you held it. Like, how did this
or
thread last so long?
like all of the sweat has just become the salt, and now it's
Mm,
like you know what I mean. It crumbles into your hand.
yeah,
It's gross. It's
seasoning
gross.
salt.
Yeah,
Chris's
yeah. Oh,
Chris's pants all over my food. No, thank you.
you know, there's people out there, Matt. There's
Oh,
people
of
out
course,
there
of
that
course.
absolutely would do that. So kind of the transition to the end here. As 2024 wraps up, we're moving into 2025. We've touched on a couple. You've got the Gin Blossoms thing that you're working on. What does 2025 look like for the label on kind of both sides, right? The manufacturing side with the re-releases and whatnot, and anything around the roster that you're excited about.
Yeah, we got a couple of signing announcements that we're kind of keeping in our pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super stoked about them. Really expanding the label, kind of like just broadening our spectrum even more,
Yeah.
which is going to be really cool. Um, we've got releases by some of our already tenured bands. Like I think this year we're gonna have a new Guilt record, we're gonna have a new Debt Neglector record, we're gonna have a new Wounded Touch record. We're gonna have some EPs or like singles by Virginity, Dreaded Laramie. I mean, I have a whole Google sheet. Let me see if there's like stuff that I'm allowed to talk about.
For
Stuff
anyone
that I
that
can't.
is listening to us still at this point, check out Bad Jazz by Virginity, by the way, because that album is
100%.
dope.
Yeah, so probably not public knowledge, but I'll just talk about it because who cares? They're going to be doing a like a B-sides
Okay.
and
Yeah.
rarities thing from Bad Jazz as like one EP coming out next year, but they also recorded the entire thing live in Jordan from the band his house.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like audio and video of that, and they're going to be doing like a Bad Jazz live accompaniment like even later in the year. So we might do some sort of like Bad Jazz deluxe version that's like here's the record plus all this other
Yeah.
shit, which will be fun. Um, but yeah, we got new songs from Reconciler, a lot of cool shit. And then going into like the reissue stuff, um, working with Patrick Stump and his camp on Soul Punk coming to vinyl, which will be super exciting. Like I
Yeah.
am a huge Fall Out Boy fan, and just like that's one like when you're talking about like meeting your heroes and everyone being like really
Mm-hmm.
awesome, like I approached that camp of like, hey, we got this license, like I'd love to do it. And they're like, oh, well, we'd love to do it too. Like, do you mind if we like jump into the songs and maybe like remix it, remaster it, like give new artwork? I'm like, no, this is exactly what I want. Like, I want to
Yeah,
hear
right.
like what's going on and like what you do differently now and stuff like that. So there's that. We're doing OK Go's self-titled record, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
That'll be coming out Q1. Um, yeah, just a lot of stuff. Like I would say just follow us, follow along for like what we're doing. We're pretty funny online. We've got some cool stuff going on. We've got a lot of records coming out. We're probably,
Yeah.
I think, let's see, as of next year, we are currently at, oh, I lost track there. Sorry. We're currently at 22 titles for
Yeah.
2025. I expect that to increase by at least a handful. So, averaging out about 1 to 2, maybe 3 per month. Um, yeah, it'll be an exciting year. And then festivals that we pop up at, like if you're going to a festival that we're at, come to our tent, come to our table, come say what's up. We've got a lot of rarities that we bring along with that like stuff that's been out of print for a while that we don't ever put online. Like we want you to come to this table and find something that's like a hidden gem, and it's
Right.
not going to be overly priced. It's going to be cool punk rock pricing, and like we just want people to have these records and be like, oh, I found this at the Smartpunk tent. Like that's the story that we want to like keep going on in perpetuity. So we always will bring like test presses or like exclusives that have sold out on the first day, and like especially if there's bands that we've worked with that are playing, like we'll have
Right.
them come sign them and like do cool shit like that, and then someone's like, oh wow, like here's maybe a home team exclusive that's signed by the band. Like I never thought I'd see this, and it's like fuck yeah, like there it is, but it's $25. Like
Right.
it probably costs more when we put it on sale originally, and here you go. But yeah, just that. And I don't know. I think that answers your question with
Yeah.
kind of what we got going on. A lot of cool shit. Not all physical. Some of it will be digital only, but yeah, come along for the ride. It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah. I'm stoked to hear about the Patrick thing too, because a huge Fallout Boy fan myself as well, but also like just very, very quickly talk about another artist, right? That he never got the solo love that he should have fucking got. That kid
Dude,
has such a voice on him. I say
it's not
kid,
fair.
he's older than me, but not the point. Like the
Not
dude
fair.
can sing like so much better than anybody gives him fucking credit for.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it just blows my mind.
I saw him at Riot Fest this past year, and like seeing that band in Chicago is just like also on another level.
I saw
Um,
them real quick, not to cut you off.
no, no,
Sorry.
no.
That reminded me. So when they came back from their first hiatus, I shot their first show back in Chicago at the
Whoa,
Riviera Theater,
dude.
and it was the coolest fucking feeling.
That's insane. That's
Yeah.
insane. There's things like that nature that like as a fan will never be able to be like I saw Alkaline Tree at the Metro. I saw
Yeah.
Jim Eat World at the Metro. There's like things that I've saw Less Than Jake at the Social down here in Orlando, which is like a 300 cap venue maybe, just like stupid crazy shit that it's like I'm a dork. I was in that room. Like nothing means more than that thing right
Yeah.
then and there. Um and that's the spirit that I want to take in with everything that we do. Like I
Right.
want this to be a fan servicing, like this whole community is filled with dorks and we're just glad to be part of it. Um but yeah, dude, the Patrick Stump record, I remember it coming out and being like, "Oh, this is weird, this is different." And like would revisit it yearly and just be like, "Oh, this is so good. Oh, these courses are so good.
Yeah.
Like the structure here is incredible." And yeah, it's just getting to work with him. That's one that I was like really afraid of. Like, here's a guy who's like still currently crushing it with his band. Like, he's gonna tell me kindly to fuck off, but they
Right.
were very welcoming. Like, hey, let's get on a call. Let's talk about this. Like, we're really stoked. And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, what a cool thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm excited for that one and what is gonna come out of it. Uh, but yeah, a lot of cool stuff. Trying to unearth a lot of lost relics that went by the wayside of like small band that was on small label that then got eaten up by this label and eaten up by that label. And now it's under the Warner Music umbrella somehow and
Yeah.
trying to get it out on vinyl. And, there's a lot of shit from Victory Records that I'm like, no one cares about this record except for like me and 99 other people. I need to press 1,000 copies of it just
The bunny
because,
and the bear, man. The
dude,
bunny and the bear.
100%. Yeah. For me, it's Secret Lives of the Freemasons. Like
Yep.
that band. I don't want to say changed my life because I don't want it to sound like bigger than it was, but that band was
Right.
like one of the first bands I toured with. Like anytime they came through my venue, they're awesome. That was a band that I found by downloading something online that I just like became obsessed with. And the nicest dudes, and the songs are great. And like, if you've never listened to this band, I can only compare it to like Glassjaw meets like Saves the Day
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. Like it's really weird, but like incredible voice, cool lyrics, cool voice, like amazing musicians, all from Asheville. Like I remember I was touring with them and we were in Asheville and they took me like the first vegetarian restaurant that I ever went to. And like was just like a mind opening, like blowing experience for
Yeah,
me. Um, just a lot of cool shit. So there's some really weird stuff we're going to be working on, but some really cool stuff too. So if
that's awesome,
you're
man.
if you're an elder emo, you might know some of these titles, and if not, you should check them out because they're all good records. We
Yeah,
we don't we don't put out bad records. I'll say it. We don't put out
I
bad
haven't.
records.
Yeah, I haven't seen one. I haven't seen one. So
They pay me
no,
to,
man.
somebody pays me to say that. So
Right, right. No, but like honestly, are there, just like any label, right? Are there some records that have come out that are just like, oh, that's a good listen, probably not in normal rotation? Sure.
yeah,
But have there also been some that I'm like, Hungover is a perfect example of a sleeper for me that I was like, it's okay. The second time I listened to that album, Matt, I was like, I'm in. I fucking
dude,
totally get
I
it now.
especially that new record, I think people are going to listen to it whenever they find it, and I hope it clicks with them because it's so awesome and it's so deep and it's so ethereal. And Mark is like one of the best songwriters I've ever
Yeah.
met. And like just that group of people, like being able to hear those songs in like acoustic guitar demo form into like we went into GarageBand and we did a shitty demo of it to like here it is in pre-production to like here's the finished product has been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like that is a sleeper record that's on the label like Hungover, great, great record. But the EP and the full length, I think, are both awesome.
Yeah.
Solid dudes. So
Yep. For sure. I'm excited for you guys. I'm obviously going to keep promoting as much as I can for you guys and whatnot.
thank you, appreciate that.
Definitely have as many of the artists on as I can,
Hell
things
yeah,
like that. But I think the thing I want to leave you with, which is backwards for these types of conversations normally, is, again, not to like boost your ego necessarily, but what you're doing with especially the reissues, I think is exactly what this older generation, us,
hmm
needs to feel like we're still seen in the scene, and that
oh yeah,
the stuff
absolutely,
that we grew up with mattered, and it's not just forgotten. You know what I mean? Like it
for sure.
it feels like it feels like an acknowledgement that sure, times have changed, but we can still love what we love.
Dude, the amount of times that I've put on an old record, and I say old, like within the last 20 years probably,
Right.
which I can't believe I'm saying that now, thinking like 20 years is 2004. But like it'll trigger me back to like being in a place with like a certain group of people that I haven't seen in a while. And then like I'll just randomly text somebody being like, hey, I was listening to this record. I remember this
Right.
situation happening. Just want to say what's up. And like it being able to like start a conversation because of this house party that we're at and some this song came on and somebody lit the kitchen on fire or some shit
Right.
like that. You know what I mean? Like there's so many odd things that happen that are tied to these just musical accompaniments. Like that is the sound. This is the soundtrack of my life.
Yeah.
And it is everything that like I'm kind of putting my hands on. Like there hasn't been a release that we've worked on that didn't affect me in some way or I don't have like some connection to.
Yeah.
Um, which is just awesome to be able to be put in this like privileged situation to say that. Um, and yeah, it's just so fun to like experience it and then to like hear another person's story about what that song or what that album did for
Yeah.
them in their life and their group of friends that are like, you know, me living in Florida my whole life, like talking to somebody from California about how the starting line changed their life. It's like we have the same stories on separate sides of the country, and it's like we are tied together through
Yeah.
Kenny Vasoli, and like I would not change that for anything. Or Jeff Rickley, or fucking whoever it may be. Like, there's so many cool things to talk about, and like so many important, like you said, just very important people and things um, that I want to make sure don't get lost. You know, I
Yeah.
think that is one of the big things of like why when we were young has like all of my friends who are now like accountants and fucking like suit and tie kind of people being like,
Right.
oh man, I bought the VIP, like I'm going the whole weekend. And I'm like, "Uh, not for nothing. Like I do this for a living. Like I've seen all those bands. It's great. Like I'm so excited for you. I'm probably gonna sit this one out so I could like hang at home, but please have
Yeah.
fun. And they're like, sending me videos of Emery and like all this stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like I'm so happy to experience this stuff through like your camera lens, and that
Yeah.
you're able to like reconnect with your inner teen or whatever it may be. Because yeah, that shit was awesome. Like being a kid and listening to music and going to shows and hanging out and going to Denny's after and like being up till 5 in the morning just fucking around was
Yeah.
awesome. And now I go to bed at 10 p.m. and I wake up at whenever and live day by day.
Yeah. I
It's all
mean,
good.
I'm
It's all good
yeah,
stuff.
I'm in the same boat. Literally, I'm gonna hang up with you. I'm gonna go eat a few Oreos and then it's bedtime, you know? Like
What kind of Oreo? What's your favorite Oreo? Let's go.
so I just did the regular ones this time because Kroger was damn near out of everything. But I really like the birthday cake ones, and I know that's a
Mm,
bitch ass answer, but they're
that's
just so
fine.
good, man.
I uh I like the tiramisu ones,
Okay.
but I will say this is a heated conversation topic. I love an Oreo thin, and I get a lot of hate for that.
Dude, the double stuff and mega stuff, too
Too
much cream.
much. Too much.
A thin is I'm with you, man.
Dude,
I will
this is
eat
our
the entire
community right
pack. Yeah.
now. Oh, absolutely. Like I will not even think about it and it'll be gone, which
Yeah.
is the problem in my house, and
It
that's why
is.
I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to
No,
buy
that you
Oreos.
don't get in my shape by not eating the whole
Dude,
pack of Oreos. So,
preaching to the choir right now.
yeah.
But yeah, dude, I really appreciate this. I would love if you ever want me back on, I would love to come back on and we
Yeah.
could bullshit for another 3 hours. Like this is my favorite thing to do. This is what like I am super passionate about doing Smartpunk is like
Yeah.
meeting new people, having these conversations, and like I hope that I don't seem scary to anybody and everyone wants to come talk to me.
Yeah. No, I've had a ton of fun as well. And maybe what we do is, we don't have to lock it in right now, but like maybe once a quarter, like we meet up, talk about
Let's
what's
do it.
launching for the next quarters or whatever, and like deep dive into what you guys have going on.
Absolutely. That'd be fun. I'm into
Yeah.
it.
Awesome. Yeah,
Hell
we'll
yeah.
figure that out then, man. And other than that, like I said, I'm stoked for everything you guys are doing. Really
Thank you so
excited for
much.
you as well because like reading your story and seeing, coming from like you said at the beginning, the band side into the industry side and still being able to feel so much passion about music is really inspiring because so many people get burnt
It's
out
tough.
when that change happens.
I mean, same, like there are so many times that I get burnt out and then there's one thing that like rekindles the flame and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm back. Like I'm back in more than I've ever been. Like here
Yeah.
we go. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's the same thing like we were talking about before. It's like I am just a kid who loves music and like I've been given this opportunity and like I think I was ready for it because like I surrounded myself with a community and being involved in the scene and like doing all this stuff, so it's kind of like I'm just plugging and playing like what I've already done in my life to kind of like make it so that it works for artists. And I want whoever may be listening to this to like kind of feel inspired to do the same. Like do whatever you want to do and there's enough stuff out there to look up and like get involved into it. Like I used YouTube to learn Photoshop and learn After
Mm-hmm.
Effects and like learn all this stuff. And like anyone can like do anything. I really feel that uh, the mind is a very powerful thing. And, there's always room to learn more. Like every
Yeah.
day I'm fucking learning more about this industry that is not very great 99% of the time, but also just like having these conversations and learning from experiences and just like things of that nature, I think is so important for the human connection. And uh, I was talking to my buddy Casey about this. Sorry to keep going on,
No,
but
you're
like
fine.
we've like said
I've got
bye.
nothing going on, bud. We're fine.
We've got Oreos to think
Yeah.
about. Hold on.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
But no, I feel like there's been a lot of hyper individualism,
Yeah.
especially in the last couple of years, and you're seeing it in a political climate, you're seeing it in a social climate, kind of all over the place. And I feel like, I don't want to just throw a blanket around it and be like, man, if we all just went to local shows more, like everyone would get along. But I do feel like having that sense of community and finding your people is such an important thing. And, it's hard to talk to somebody and be like, oh, don't worry, you're not alone when they feel like they're that only
Mm-hmm.
person like around them who has these thoughts or feelings or is into like this one thing. But the internet is such a powerful thing that like there are people kind of all over who you can connect with. And I think Discord's a great fucking tool for that. And I think there's so many just ways of like social media being as terrible as it can be and is also such a powerful thing of finding these connections. And like, I love going online and seeing like BTS fandom or seeing Fall Out Boy
Yeah.
fandom or seeing the Taylor Swift fandom. Like, I love it. Like, I am such a big fan of fandom and people who are like up until 1 or 2 a.m. last night, like watching somebody live stream the last Taylor Swift era's concert. Like, that shit rocks. I wish that like I had the energy to put into something like that.
Right.
Um, but it's just such a cool thing to like be a part of and experience. And like on the artist end, to have people that care about you that much that like they're experiencing their own friendships through your connectivity, I think is so important and so endearing. And like it really touches the soul like nothing else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I 100% agree. I mean, the short version of why it's called "You Make the Scene" for my music journalism is exactly that. It's about the community. Every single person at a show is what makes that scene. Whether
100%.
it's a fan, the merch person, the light person, the band on stage, like none of it exists without you being a part of it. So like I'm all about that community that you're talking about. Like I just want people to, like I'm sure you had it growing up too. Like you go to a hardcore show and people are like, why would you go there? That's so violent. They're punching each other, whatever. Like I've never felt safer than I've ever felt
Right.
at a metal show or a hardcore show. Like
Oh yeah.
it's my people. I know what they feel. They know what I feel. We're good.
We're yelling into each other's faces, like just spit
Yeah.
straight pre-COVID world,
Right.
obviously. But yeah, just being in that room singing along, like there's nothing like that. And I mean, that was another thing. Like when I was got out of like the band world and I was opened a venue with my dad in South Florida, like seeing like bands like Touche Amore come through, like that was the fire under my ass to like kind of get back into the scene and play music again. It was seeing like all these people that I had never met from my town coming out to see this band, screaming along the words that I'm also
Yeah.
screaming along to, and like just looking at them being like, oh, this is about us. Like this is all us in this room, this moment right now. And it's such a powerful feeling. It's so hard to like explain and conceptualize, but it's such a powerful feeling. And like anytime I'm at a Touche Amore show, like I get goosebumps and like the hair raises up and I'm just like I'm transported to a thing where it's just like I'm in a small room watching this and it could be a fucking 3,000 people watching, but I'm like
Right.
it's just like 50 of us here together like screaming along and letting it all out, and there's nothing more cathartic than that. And it's like, you know, I think it's the same. Like I can't say thank you to a band enough for writing these songs and
Hmm.
doing this like often very thankless job. And I'm sure they're like, well, we can't thank you enough for like checking us out and singing along right back at us and bringing your two friends. And like it is, it's a very uh, healthy relationship, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's, especially the hardcore world, I think it's fucking awesome for that. And I think that hardcore and punk rock seeping out into the mainstream is such a cool thing. Like listening to uh, Damien's Turned Out a Punk podcast and just hearing about like all these people who work at like Coca-Cola. And it's like, oh, well, like I do design for Coca-Cola, but like I started going to Minor Threat shows and it's like, oh fuck, like this dude and I have so much in common. Like
Yeah.
we both love this like one like the Fugazi, this song on this record, like that is our song. And like it's so fun to just like find these little Easter eggs in the world and just be like, oh yeah, we're all people. We all have emotions. We all like yelling when we want to yell, and we all like being sad when we want to be sad. And like these are just normal feelings that we feel, and it just is. So any uh any way that I could kind of be a part of that story, I am so thankful to be a part of that story.
Yeah. I again just it sounds cliche, especially after the monologue you just gave, that like I can't thank you enough for bringing this stuff back to life, and letting
Oh,
it
dude, absolutely.
live the way that it deserved to live. So yeah, like I said, we'll definitely stay in touch. We'll figure out something for 2025, some sort of partnership, podcast type thing that we do. And
Absolutely. Let's rock and
um,
roll.
yeah, we'll keep it moving, man. I'm really excited for what you've got on the books, and
Dude, thank you so
2025 is
much.
going to be the year. You know what I mean?
Keep on keeping on. That's what we do.
Yep. Awesome, man. I appreciate it. I'll keep you posted on when this goes live and everything as well, and we'll just go from there.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Cheers, brother.
See ya.